what's wrong with the No Kings rallies? What's wrong with them? Well, the message is that Trump, needs to not have authority. That Trump shouldn't be going after the people who made up the Russiagate hoax, like John Bolton, like James Comey, and the FBI director. The message is that Trump shouldn't be centralizing power and pushing back against the political establishment, that he should just be a puppet. And they don't want strong leadership. That's really the message of these rallies. It's even though Trump has basically done pretty much what any other president would do, because there is a whiff of populism in Trump, because Trump talked about, he didn't care who won in Ukraine as long as the killing stopped, because Trump spoke against the elites, because Trump, presents himself as a champion of the Rust Belt worker, et cetera. They see Trump as potentially a threat to their system. And the rally is all about defending the awful status quo from the potential that Trump might actually change things. Well, Trump isn't changing things. He's continuing the wars. He bombed Iran, et cetera. But that's not enough for them. Trump is just not hawkish enough. Trump is just not pro FBI enough. These rallies have completely lost the plot. Completely lost the plot. The establishment wants to remove Trump because they're afraid he might make peace with Russia. The establishment wants to remove Trump because they are concerned about him exposing the Russiagate hoax. The establishment wants to remove Trump because they feel like he's not a team player for imperialism. And that's why these rallies are awful, right? We are critical of Trump. We don't support him bombing Iran. We don't support him attacking Venezuela. We don't support a lot of what he's doing, and we're disappointed in a number of ways. But these people, they are opposing Trump for the wrong reasons. They want Trump to be another Joe Biden. That's the only way they would be happy. Well, we don't want Trump to be another Joe Biden. We would like Trump to actually be a peace president. He's not doing that, but, wouldn't it be better if he did? And I want to talk specifically tonight, in the remainder of my opening remarks. I just want to talk about a couple other things. Another small trifle that I thought was worth bringing to your attention. Now, keep in mind, you can send questions for the second half of the show. Rumble Rants, Cash App, or Buy Me a Coffee. Buy Me a Coffee is the best way to send questions. So No Kings, this was the big U.S. political establishment mobilization. It was the Democrat Party basically calling out. It's MSNBC, CNN, big liberal mobilization against Trump. That's what this was. There is a small communist group that is trying to do their own version of No Kings. And they're doing it because they are a front for French intelligence. And I wanted to bring this all to your attention because this is something that I've spent a lot of time researching and all this. So on November 5th, the Revolutionary Communist Party, they have a mass organization called Refuse Fascism. And they are calling for people to come to Washington, D.C. for a whole bunch of civil disobedience because Trump must go, right? And Trump is fascist and he must go. And why are they doing this? They're doing this because they're a front for the French imperialists. The French imperialists are furious because they lost their 3 colonies. Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso used to be de facto colonies of France. They were formally independent, but French companies and corporations dominated their economy. The French military was there. The United Nations was there, and these countries were impoverished. And in 2023, there was revolutions in all 3 of these countries. The military of Mali, of Niger, of Burkina Faso rose up, and they established the Union of Sahel States. It's a great development, a really, really great development. And Russia is what enabled it to happen. It was Russia that supported the military and brought to power the great African leader Ibrahim Traore, brought to power these new anti-colonial revolutionary governments in what was formerly French, imperialist property. And France is a huge supporter of sending weapons to Ukraine. And the French government right now is in a crisis because their ruling class is fighting among themselves. They've just jailed the former president. Nicolas Sarkozy is now in jail allegedly because he got money from Gaddafi. God forbid, right? That, it's like Russiagate, but Sarkozy has now been jailed for allegedly getting money from Gaddafi. And the French ruling class is fighting with itself. And they very much want to drive out Trump, and they want to have an all-out war with Russia. And they are meddling in our politics here in America to try and push for a continuation of the war. And the Revolutionary Communist Party, they started out as a Maoist communist group in the United States during the 1970s. But during the 1980s, they became agents of French intelligence. And I know about this, and I have documented this, and I am going to tell that story tonight, just so we're clear on this, that when, they're coming up, they're having these big national days of action. I don't think much is going to come of it because they're doing it. But I actually wrote a whole book, a letter to their leader, Bob Avakian, a letter to Bob Avakian, where in this book I document that they are operating as assets of French intelligence. And I document it. So basically what happened? During the 1970s, China's politics very dramatically changed. And the RCP, the Revolutionary Communist Party, was an attempt to build a new party that was aligned with China. Well, in 1976, Mao Zedong died, and there was a fight in China, and then Deng Xiaoping came to power. Bob Avakian decided he didn't like Deng Xiaoping. And so there was a big fight within the RCP, and they kicked out the people in the RCP who supported Deng Xiaoping, and they announced that China was no longer socialist, and they turned against China. And at that point, the RCP then engaged in a series of provocations against the Jimmy Carter administration because there were people within the American government who didn't want to have relations with China. The John Birch Society and a lot of Republicans didn't support the USA recognizing the Chinese government. And because of that, when the Chinese embassy opened in Washington, D.C., Bob Avakian's followers trashed it. They threw explosives into it. They broke all the windows, and they trashed and attacked the Chinese embassy in Washington, D.C. And when Deng Xiaoping came to the White House, they somehow penetrated White House grounds. This is a serious crime. You try to do something like this nowadays, you're going to jail for a really long time. I don't know how they did this. Most likely they did this because they were helped by deep state elements that are anti-China. But somehow 2 RCP members got into the White House. And when Jimmy Carter and Deng Xiaoping were having a press conference, they ran at Deng Xiaoping with their little red books and were jumped by security, by the Secret Service, and kicked out. But they got in and they penetrated White House grounds, very serious crime, to harass and threaten Deng Xiaoping. Hundreds of RCP members were arrested trying to prevent the USA from establishing diplomatic relations with China. Very horrible, horrible thing. And they were heavily infiltrated at the time by a nonprofit called Western Goals. Western Goals was a nonprofit set up by the John Birch Society, the Western Goals Foundation, that trained people. It was a domestic intelligence agency, a domestic intelligence service, a private intelligence service run by Congressman Larry McDonald. And they trained people to join communist groups and manipulate them from within. And it appears that the RCP was being used by Western Goals, this like CIA, John Birch Society group, to hurt China, because they thought China had sold out. Deng Xiaoping had abandoned Mao's revolutionary line, and so they were being used by the Western Goals Foundation. And they engaged in very provocative acts, destroying the Chinese embassy, penetrating White House grounds to go after Deng Xiaoping. Hundreds of their members were arrested. Then they announced, after this had happened, 1979, they announced that they were going to have May Day 1980, and they called a general strike on May 1st, which they had no labor unions. So it was not a general strike, but they pretended to have a general strike on May 1st. And basically what happened was the Iran hostage crisis was happening. And Ronald Reagan and conservatives were having rallies against Iran. And the RCP would show up at these rallies and burn the American flag and become the punching bags and the rodeo clowns for the conservatives. And these conservatives would beat the hell out of them and injure them. A lot of them went to the hospital. A couple of their members died, and they were like the heels, the villains in professional wrestling at these Iran rallies to get the pro imperialist Reagan right wing like riled up. Right, really an awful thing. Two of their members got killed. One member was found at the bottom of an elevator shaft in New York City. Her body was found at the bottom of an elevator shaft. Another one of their members was stabbed to death in Los Angeles after he had gone to the Alamo and pulled down the American flag and put up a communist flag. And the next day he was stabbed to death in Los Angeles. And it was the RCP was this group that was acting crazy because they were controlled by American intelligence. Bob Avakian, and the leader of the RCP, was facing very serious criminal charges. And so in 1982, he fled the country and he moved to France. And in my book, I document it. He admits that when he got to France, there was a whole network set up for communists from around the world that were fleeing to France. At this same time, Red Brigades, the Red Brigade terrorists in Italy that were bombing people during the years of lead, they all fled to France, and they were given safe refuge in France. And who else fled to France? The Unicorn Killer, the guy who invented Earth Day, Ira Einhorn, the Unicorn Killer. He fled and he lived in hiding in France for many years. And that France had this policy of letting communists from around the world go to France, right? And that Eldridge Cleaver lived in France for a while, and that this was like a French intelligence program that they set up, that basically if you're a communist and you're facing serious criminal charges, France will take you in. We won't send you back to America. You can live in France. You can live your life in France. Now, Bob Avakian applied to be a formal political exile, like a formal political exile in France. He wanted to be an official political exile and get like asylum status. They denied it. But he stayed in France. And from 1982 to 2003, that's 20 years, Bob Avakian lived in France. And the Revolutionary Communist Party was directed from France. Bob was running it from France. And at the time, there were big divisions between French imperialism and American imperialism. For example, the French believe in nuclear power. They helped Iraq get nuclear power, and Israel bombed Iraq and killed a French scientist by bombing the Iraqi nuclear facilities. France also, because they believe in nuclear power, and they don't like environmentalist groups. And France, the French government murdered Greenpeace activists, because Greenpeace was harassing their whaling ships and Greenpeace was against nuclear power. The French government conducted, an assassination of Greenpeace activists. What year was that? France killed Greenpeace. So this is, and Greenpeace was very much, a counter gang. And in 1985, the French government saw Greenpeace as working for the British and the Americans and working against nuclear power. So the French sunk and killed the Rainbow Warrior, which was a Greenpeace ship, and they killed a couple French citizens or a couple American, or I think, American citizens that were part of the Greenpeace group. So this kind of intelligence rivalry was going on. France really liked Saddam Hussein. The U.S. government did not like Saddam Hussein, right? And so there was kind of a weird relationship where France would do business and buy oil from Saddam Hussein, and France had an economic relationship with Saddam Hussein, whereas the U.S. government hated Saddam Hussein. And all of this was going on. So what happened later? Then in the 1990s, what was the big leftist political cause of Gen X? What was the major, if you were a communist in America in the 1990s, what was the issue that you organized around? What was the issue? What was the main cause? If like every communist group in America, what did they focus on during the 1990s? What was like the focus, the main obsession? It was on all the all the albums of Rage Against the Machine. They talked about it, and rappers talked about it. And, what was the big communist cause of the 1990s? It was this guy. It was, hold on, gotta put the image on the screen. The major cause of the 1990s, which I believe was a just cause. I think he's innocent. The main communist cause of the 1990s was this guy, Mumia Abu-Jamal. Now, Mumia Abu-Jamal was a former Black Panther from Philadelphia who was accused falsely of killing a police officer, and he didn't do it. He was innocent. But the government of the state of Pennsylvania wanted to give Mumia Abu-Jamal the death penalty. And the French government made it their mission to free Mumia Abu-Jamal, to stop his execution. And in 1995, they were successful, right? Thousands, hundreds of thousands of people flew into Philadelphia. They had huge demonstrations. The Pope spoke up in support of Mumia, and all kinds of people. And the execution was stopped. And it was a French intelligence operation. And it's funny because I know this because I worked with communists, and they talked about how they fundraised like crazy from France, to do it. How they went over to France and they came back with loads and loads of money to free Mumia Abu-Jamal. And I actually, while I was in Russia, I talked with somebody, I'm not going to say who, an American who was very politically active. I mean, very politically active during this time. And they confirmed to me that, oh, yeah, they knew that for a fact, that the movement to free Mumia Abu-Jamal was a French intelligence operation. And they made it pretty obvious. They named a street in Paris. There is a street in Paris named after Mumia Abu-Jamal. Various French cities have made Mumia Abu-Jamal a French citizen. And the French government lists on its website, one of its official foreign policy goals is to end the death penalty. So the French imperialists, in their rivalry with the U.S. imperialists, they like Saddam Hussein. The USA hates Saddam Hussein. The USA has the death penalty. They don't like the death penalty. They made it their mission to free Mumia Abu-Jamal. Well, what a coincidence that a communist group whose leader is living in Paris, they become focused on freeing Mumia Abu-Jamal. In fact, they're the main organization dedicated to freeing Mumia Abu-Jamal. And they just happen to be directed by their leader who lives in Paris. Can they make it more obvious what's going on here, right? They're getting their orders from France, and the French government is naming streets after Mumia, and the French government is openly funding and backing activist groups the RCP were functioning as assets of French intelligence. And this was going on. But at the time, that didn't prevent the RCP from doing good work because, French imperialism was at odds with American imperialism, and Mumia Abu-Jamal was innocent. And I think, aligning with French imperialism to free Mumia, that's fine. I don't have an issue with that, right? Mumia was innocent. And, thank goodness he's still alive. But they were doing it in coordination with the French imperialists and with the French deep state that was in a rivalry with the American deep state. And then what happened? The USA invaded Iraq. Who was the main voice opposing it? The French president, Jacques Chirac. The French imperialists strongly opposed the invasion of Iraq. Well, of course, the communists did as well. And again, was the invasion of Iraq good? No, the invasion of Iraq was wrong. So aligning with the French imperialists to build an anti-war movement to oppose the invasion of Iraq, that's a good thing, right? And it made sense, right? And because French imperialism was at odds with British and American imperialism, to be an ally, to be an asset of French intelligence, it didn't make you bad. It didn't put you on the wrong side. You could oppose the invasion of Iraq. You could support Mumia. You could be on the right side of things and be an agent of French intelligence. And then what happened, right? France really hated George W. Bush. And so what happened, right? Michael Moore, he made the film Fahrenheit 9/11. Fahrenheit 9/11. And the film Fahrenheit 9/11 won the Palme d'Or at the Cannes Film Festival. Michael Moore was, loved. Basically, the French government-sponsored film festival gave Michael Moore the highest prize for his anti-Bush film. And Harold Pinter, he won the Nobel Prize for literature for his playwriting, his drama, work. And Harold Pinter, he gave a big long speech, and then eventually they gave him the Legion d'Honneur, the highest honor in French society. He was honored for this. And again, Harold Pinter said a lot of true things, but the French hated Bush. So 2003, the French are against the Iraq War. The French have supported Mumia Abu-Jamal. What happens? Bob returns to the United States. And when he gets to the United States, he says, hey, we're going to focus on impeaching George W. Bush. And the RCP forms World Can't Wait, Drive Out the Bush Regime. And they form a protest group dedicated to impeaching George W. Bush, and that becomes their focus. The World Can't Wait. Before they had Not in Our Name, which was an anti-war group. They'd had Refuse and Resist to support Mumia. But Bob, in 2003, he returns from exile, comes back to the United States. It's not clear how he stayed in France because he was denied political exile status, but he had to have come to some kind of agreement with the French government. And he returns from exile, and they become dedicated to impeaching George W. Bush at the same time that France is promoting Michael Moore, promoting Harold Pinter. You get the picture. They're assets of French intelligence. And they don't support any existing communist government. They don't support China. They don't support Cuba. They don't support North Korea. All of them are revisionists, right? That only Bob, with his new synthesis, he's the one true communist in the world. All the others have abandoned it. Only Bob Avakian, with his new synthesis, understands communism. I mean, it's particularly ridiculous, right? Their ideology deteriorates into this weird, philosophical wrangling, solid core with a lot of elasticity. And you go to talk, you see the RCP people, ask them what Bob Avakian's new synthesis is. They can't explain it to you. They pull out books and try to start reading to you. They can't actually explain it themselves. And the group has really fallen apart. And when Bob came back in 2003, he kicked out a number of the people in the group who he didn't find to be trustworthy. And the group has really, really deteriorated. It's become kind of a joke. But now, why is the RCP not good? Right? You'd think that the RCP would support Russia and Ukraine. Why? Because of a basic principle called revolutionary defeatism. You always welcome the defeat of your own imperialist power. But Russia didn't, the RCP denounces Russia and calls Russia an evil imperialist country. You would think the RCP would support China. Maybe they don't think they're socialist anymore, but they would support them on the basis of being against U.S. imperialism. No, they call China a hellhole. And RCP is basically, they are basically taking the French position. And their position, they have this hysterical demonstration that they're planning. Their rhetoric is that Trump is so dangerous. He's got to be removed. That we're living in fascism right now. That's their rhetoric, is that we're living in fascism. Well, you're wrong. We're living in a period where there's a division within the ruling class. There's a power struggle going on, and Trump represents a faction that to some degree or other is less hawkish and is at odds with the FBI. I could not believe it, but during Trump's first term, the Revolutionary Communist Party, Refuse Fascism, which is they turned World Can't Wait into Refuse Fascism. Refuse Fascism had a rally to support James Comey, the FBI director. When Trump fired James Comey, what did they do? They had a rally to support the FBI director against the elected president. Like, they want the rule of the FBI, not elected leaders. Completely unbelievable. And the RCP are agents of French intelligence. They're assets of French intelligence. They were directed from France for many years. Their activism completely lines up with French foreign policy goals. When French imperialism and American imperialism were at odds, they did great work. Now that French imperialism is aligned with the USA and Ukraine, now not only do they demonize Russia and Ukraine, but they want to go further. They want Trump removed because he's too friendly to Russia. I mean, you can't make this shit up, right? Right now, the people of Burkina Faso and Mali and Niger have been fighting and finally achieved their independence from French imperialism. But is the RCP supporting them? No, the RCP is working with the French imperialists to try and oust Trump and escalate war against Russia as revenge for the people of the Sahel states gaining their independence. I mean, you can't make this up. The RCP is really, really deteriorated. But here's the sad thing. You remember 2002, the U.S. Supreme Court overturned Roe versus Wade and enabled states to outlaw abortion. And when that happened, the RCP, they have been doing abortion protests for years. It's one of their favorite causes, rise up for abortion rights. And they organized some protests. And AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, spoke at one of their rallies. Good for them. I mean, if I don't think abortion should be the focus, but whatever. I don't, whatever. And after that, mainstream U.S. media went into an overdrive attacking the RCP, calling them what? A cult, right? And the Daily Beast did hit pieces on them. The Intercept did pieces on them. They were widely demonized. Article after article came out. Planned Parenthood, the main pro-abortion group, wrote a letter saying the RCP is not welcome at our events. And they got majorly canceled. And they went after their main organizer, a woman named Sincera Taylor, who's not that much older than me. She's older than me, but not maybe by 10 years at the most. And they canceled her viciously. They called her a groomer. They smeared her reputation. I mean, they went after them viciously. Why? Because they're controlled by French intelligence. They're not controlled by American intelligence. The U.S. government doesn't trust them because there have been differences between American imperialism and French imperialism in the past. And because the RCP is an illiberal group, and because the RCP has a very disciplined way of doing things, right? They do have democratic centralism, and they're good at organizing rallies for abortion or against Trump or whatever. Even though they were saying exactly what MSNBC says, hysterical, pro-abortion, anti-Trump stuff, they smeared and canceled them. Why? The U.S. imperialists don't need Maoists. They don't need you, Bob. They don't need you to run their anti-Trump campaign. They've got MSNBC to run their anti-Trump campaign. They've got George Soros. They don't need you. And it is so tragic. It is so tragic to watch the Revolutionary Communist Party, right, that are basically agents of French intelligence, helping the French imperialists try to remove Trump so that NATO can be more at war and more hostile to Russia, and get canceled for it. Yeah, they've got no kings. They don't need refuse fascism. They've got no kings. And the U.S. ruling class has said, no thanks. We don't need you. We don't, yeah, they've got Brian Becker. They don't need, and it's sad. It's just downright fucking sad, right? The RCP, it's like, it's a thing they talk about simps, right? Have you ever heard of this? Like the guy who, the woman is never going to date him, but he follows her around and he buys her nice things and he cleans her apartment and he drives her places and he does all kinds of stuff for her, hoping that eventually she'll sleep with him, but she doesn't. But he thinks that she's going to sleep with him, so he becomes... That's basically what the RCP have turned into. They are simps of the Democrat Party. And it's tragic. It's tragic, right? I always mess up when I use these slangs. But a simp is a person, in particular a man, who is excessively attentive or submissive to someone whom they are romantically or sexually interested in. That's what the RCP have turned into. They are Democratic Party simps. And the Democrats have said, no, thank you. No, thank you. We have other boyfriends. We got Brian Becker. We've got George Soros. We've got Rachel Maddow. We really don't need you, Bob. And Bob is just going to, no, we'll organize the anti-abortion rally. Please, date me. And it's like, they don't want you, Bob. They don't want you because you're a Maoist and they think Mao is a mass murdering dictator. They don't want you because you're a Leninist and they think that Lenin and Stalin and mass murder. They don't want you because your group is illiberal and has an authoritarian structure, and they don't want illiberal organizations. They just want hashtags. And it's so pathetic watching the RCP simp for the Democratic Party, right? They are the the desperate guy who's trying to get the girl to date him, and she's not interested, but he's being a sucker, right? Simps aren't sexy, and it's really sad. And so on November 5th, French intelligence is going to organize their own version of No Kings, and they're already getting canceled for it. The ruling class has no kings. They don't need refuse fascism. They've got no kings. But this is Sansara Taylor defensively explaining that they are not a cult, and that, oh, you've got to join refuse fascism because they're going to drive out Trump. It's really fucking sad. This is their organizer, who's a serious organizer, who I do respect. I mean, she's a smart person, and if Bob ever kicks the bucket, she's probably going to be the leader of the RCP. She's going to be the next leader. She's going to inherit the farm. And this is her desperately urging people, please work with us, even though we're communists, even though we're canceled as a cult. Please work with us. Please, we can be anti-Trump liberals too. So sad.
I get the feedback a lot when I say the name of the organization. I don't want to be associated with that.
First and foremost, we tell everybody that what is at stake is the future of humanity. And the question is not, do you want to work with this?
Yeah, the future of humanity is at stake. That's why if they're able to drive out Trump, we're going to have a nuclear war with Russia. Yes, you're on the wrong side. You're helping the people. Trump is trying to some degree or other. It looks like Trump is trying to not have World War III with Russia. Humanity's fate is at stake, and you're on the wrong goddamn side.
Group or that group. The question is not, do you agree with everything that anybody else in the organization is saying? The question is, where do you stand on fascism? And the objective fact is we only defeat this by standing together, and there is only one plan and program. There is only one practical approach that has been developed that is even aiming to drive out this regime. And there is only one that corresponds to a path that could really succeed, and that's what Refuse Fascism has put forward in this call. Is there anything in this call that's untrue?
Is there anything in this call that I wouldn't hear on the Rachel Maddow show?
Ask them. This is reality. Those are the terms. All of us are answerable to this reality and to history on this. We're not answerable to what is popular, what our friends think, what the movement thinks, any of that crap. We are answerable to future generations and to the people of the world and to the immigrants in detention right now to drive this regime out. And so this is what we all have to join with. That's number one. And to do that, we have to work together. Number two, before you go getting scared because of or repeating, even worse, slander and snark against organizations, including the one that I'm part of, the Revcoms, and the leader I support, Bob Avakian, have the integrity to find out what they actually stand for yourself. Because I guarantee you, the majority of people who spread this snark and slander about Bob Avakian and the Revcoms have never looked into his work. They say stuff that is so counter to what his work and his life record over decades has been. People say, oh, he's an old white guy, he's a racist. This man worked with the Black Panther Party. He has been dedicated for decades to the liberation of black people as part of the emancipation of humanity. People say, oh, Bob.
Yeah, you know, and they've done the same thing to me. I literally videotaped the police beating up black women in Cleveland, and they call me a white supremacist. Like, they don't want you. Stop groveling before evil motherfuckers. Like, it's embarrassing. Can't you just figure out you're on the wrong side? You know, the imperialists, they've got the whole apparatus of imperialist monopoly capital to run their campaign to remove Trump the Bonapartist, right? Yeah. They've canceled me the same way. And then I realized, oh, that's because they're on the opposite side, right? It continues.
And he's a totalitarian. He wants no rights. Read the Constitution he's written and his work on for the new socialist republic and the work he's done on the rights of the people and free speech and dissent and the importance of that to any just society and the work he's done under this system to defend as long as we're forced to live under this.
Avakian calls himself a Maoist, a Marxist, a Leninist, and a Maoist, and they are fighting to defend the liberal order, Sansara. They think Trump is like Lenin. They think Trump is like Mao. That's their problem. Trump is not like them. That's what they think. That's why they march through the streets with pictures of Trump and Kim Jong-il. That's why they said, oh my God, if Trump wins, we're going to leave NATO. They think Trump is like what you're for. Don't you get it? They're against what you're for. And they are against Trump because they think he's like you. Come on.
Will defend the rights of this Constitution, even that are supposed to be guaranteed, even as we're fighting for a different Constitution. People don't know thing one about Bob Avakian. They are caught up in what is too common in this culture, and it's directed against him in particular because he's extremely radical and challenging. But it's directed against others too. Cancel culture.
Yes. And who controls the cancel culture? Why is it that the Me Too movement started when Trump was elected president and it ended when Joe Biden was nominated? Cancel culture is controlled by the people you're sucking up to. Come on. Right? And they've done it to me, and they will do it to anybody. They are the enemy. They are the main danger. The Democrat Party and their Atlanticist pathology that thinks Russia is the same as Hitler and all of that, they are the ones that are doing this to you. You're on the wrong side.
Snark culture. If you are on the outs and I defend you, I might get on the outs, so I better join the cool kids and not go there.
So stop trying to be one of the cool kids. That's what you're doing. You're sucking up to the people that are doing this, not just to you, but to all of us. Stop it. Just say no. This
has got to stop. We're not going to do anything serious if we keep this going. This is what the fascists have. They've made like mincemeat out of so many movements by preying upon this. We cannot feed into their hands. So number two.
Yes, exactly. So stop supporting the liberals.
Is find out for yourself, have the integrity and principle to actually tell the truth and challenge bullshit when you hear it. You don't have to be a Revcom. You don't have to support and follow Bob Avakian like I do to call people out for spreading snark, just like we call people out for spreading snark about any other group. Differences of principle we need to get into. Differences of strategy, like should we general strike or go to D.C., we should discuss. We can learn from each other. But snark and cancel and stay away is just destructive.
Or how about we don't try to remove Trump in order to have World War III with Russia, and instead we focus on organizing for jobs and schools and education and against the low-wage police state, and we demand a government of action that fights for working families. How about that? How about we support the peace talks that Trump is doing to try and prevent World War III with Russia? How about we support Tulsi Gabbard, in exposing that Russiagate was a hoax? You're on the Russiagate side, Sincera.
It does the work of the fascists for them. And frankly, most people who spread it, who are hardcore about it, not everybody who repeats it without knowing, but most who are hardcore about it are doing it because they're afraid of answering thing one. Where do you stand on fascism?
No, they're not. They all think Trump is a fascist, and they think you're a fascist because you like Mao. They think you're a fascist because you don't have a transgender flag hanging in your window. No, they don't. They all think exactly the same shit that you do, that Trump is Hitler and we're all going to die. They just think that because your group is illiberal and your group at various points in the past has been anti-imperialist, that you're a fascist too. And that's why you should stop sucking up to these people.
Truth, it's an avoidance. So the final thing three, is we should tell people, look, it would be better if you had the principle and the integrity to take up November 5th and this move to drive out the fascist regime together in coalition.
Why not? We already had October 18th. And what you're saying is not any different than October 18th. Like, who cares, right? They don't need you, right? They don't need you. They've got George Soros. They've got Brian Becker, right? They don't need you.
With Refuse Fascism and other organizations, it'd be better if you had the principle to do that. But if you don't want to do it with us, do it on your own. Because we have to all get to D.C.
They're already doing it on their own, and they don't need you.
This is about our responsibility to the people of the world. This is not about us. This is not about you. This is not about them. This is about which direction history will unfold in. And right now, the fascists are on a tear. It is a juggernaut. It is almost too late, and we are running out of time. So get there. Get everybody you.
Oh, so sad. So sad. You know, so sad. And it's just like, come on. Do you not see that, you know, the people of the Sahel states just got their independence from French imperialism? Do you not see that they hate Trump because he wants to make peace with Russia? They hate Trump because he's not worse. They don't want Trump to be better. They want Trump to be worse. And here's another video they made. You know, this is another video from their YouTube channel, desperately assuring everyone that they are not a cult. We're not a cult. Oh, boy.
Protest against Trump this past weekend, and there are people passing this out. This little explainer about refuse fascism that is designed to scare you away from them and their association with the Revcoms, revolutionary communists.
So why are you sucking up to them then? If they're literally passing out tracts calling you an evil cult, why are you sucking up to them?
This tiny thing is packed to the brim with lies, and I'm gonna get to them in a second. But just think about it.
Yeah, and I know who probably put it out too. And it's the same people that put out shit about me, right? And it's the same people that have targeted the Unification Church for years. It's the same people that are going after the Church of Scientology. And not everyone they go after is good or bad, but it's coming from your side. It's the, you know, their mastermind, Steve Hassan, literally wrote the book, The Cult of Trump, right? This is coming from your side.
We are in Los Angeles, ground zero of Trump's terroristic assault on immigrants. Fascism is full speed ahead in every realm of society. And what we need to be doing is acting urgently, uniting everyone possible to drive this fascist regime from power. Yet, some people thought the most important thing to do at this protest was to attack refuse fascism.
Because they think you're the same as Trump. Because you're an illiberal organization. Because you are Maoists, because your organization at least professes anti-imperialism, even though you don't practice it. They hate you for the same reason they hate Trump, and you're not going to be able to be the leaders of some anti-Trump movement. They don't need you.
Who since 2016 has been consistently calling this fascism out for what it is and clearly saying that the whole regime must go now.
Rachel Maddow says that every night on MSNBC. There is literally nothing original or revolutionary or exciting about calling Trump Hitler. That is like the most cliche thing ever, right? It is literally, it is practically the CNN party line. So you're so amazing because you said what MSNBC says, not following you. You know, they pay Rachel Maddow $30 million a year to say exactly what you're saying. No, you don't get special credit because you've been calling Trump Hitler. That's really pretty cheap.
Whatever those making these attacks think they are doing, what they're objectively doing is the dirty work that serves the Trump fascist regime. And Bob Avakian, a revolutionary leader, puts it in his message Revolution 129 like this.
Irresponsible opportunist distortions should not be allowed to sabotage the unity of the millions needed to drive out the Trump fascist regime.
But let's get back to this. First, on the title. On Refuse Fascism, aka Revcom. No, not aka. It's two separate organizations. And yeah, the Revcoms are very open about being part of starting it and our participation in it, alongside Democrats, independents, religious leaders, and others. Because believe it or not, we really do want to stop fascism. And if you also want to stop it, then you should unite.
Yes, it's a popular front. It's a mass campaign. Yes, we get it, right? We get it. But you know, just like other mass campaigns, it's a mass organizing effort directed by your party, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that.
Alongside us. Oh, and by the way, Bob Avakian has been sounding the alarm about the rise of fascism in the U.S. for over 30 years.
Longer than that, actually. When Richard Nixon was president, Bob Avakian's people that at that point were called what were they called? They were called the Revolutionary Union. They called Nixon a fascist, and they had a campaign to throw the bum out. And in the 1980s, they called Ronald Reagan a fascist, and they had a campaign against Ronald Reagan. And this hustle that they've been running, where whoever the Republican president is, they call them a fascist, and they buy ads in the New York Times, and they have hysterical protests and demonstrations. Oh my God, we're all going to die. The RCP has literally been running this hustle since before either of us were born, my dear. And it's old and it's lame and it's not original and it's boring and it's not innovative.
We'd be in a way better position today if people had been seriously listening to what he's been saying versus all this anti-communist snark and dismissal. Some people in Refuse Fascism discuss Bob Avakian's work as well as analysis from a host of others. But ooh, beware, there's scary commies involved. Another outright and frankly dangerous lie.
You know, she's right. I have been targeted in the exact same way they've been targeted, but I've been smart enough to realize what side this is coming from.
Includes calling the Revcoms a pyramid scheme, and twice accuses Revcoms of misappropriating funds, which is not only completely made up, it's a tactic commonly used by the right-wing fascist forces in this country and the political police.
Yeah, it's part of Khruschevism, right? You know, the leader is living in a palace and living in luxury, exploiting you all. They tried to say that shit about me too. It's like literally I spent so much of my own money on CPI, right? I'm running worried about money the whole time, but according to the Cult Awareness Network narrative about me, I live in luxury at the expense of all the people in CPI. Like literally, we don't have enough dues money to pay for any of the shit that we do. Right? I spend my time going around fundraising and spending my own money on making things happen. And yeah, you know, I've been subjected, I've been smeared in the exact same way. It's like, it's a playbook, right? This is the playbook that Steve Hassan and all of them use. They use it against every group. They use it against every single group, right?
Finding yourself in their company is not a good look. The flyer paints the Revcoms as homophobic. Total bullshit. Our points of attention for the revolution state: we fight for a world where all the chains are broken. Women, men, and differently gendered people are equals and comrades.
Yeah, well, you didn't always think that. Okay? Let's just be honest, right? This is where, like, come on, like, just be honest, okay? In the 70s and 80s and even up into the 90s, they thought homosexuality was bourgeois decadence, and they changed their minds about that. But you know, just be honest. You know, just say we used to think some stuff. We don't think that. You don't have to play games here. And there are legitimate concerns about, you know, transgender bathrooms and, you know, men and women's sports and all of that. And why aren't you allowed? Why would you join a movement that says you're not allowed to raise those concerns? Do you really, you're so desperate to be included in a movement that says if you so much as say, geez, I don't know about, you know, biological males in women's sports, then you get called a Nazi. Why are you so desperate to join a movement full of people like that?
Tolerate physically or verbally abusing women or treating them as sexual objects, nor do we tolerate insults or jokes about people's gender or sexual orientation. And we Revcoms take this.
She kind of talks like she doesn't tolerate jokes about anything. To be honest, I mean, the tone she's using there, I would be a little bit nervous to make a joke, you know, just a knock joke around her. So I definitely would not make any jokes about women or anything like that around her. Good night.
This and all the points of attention very seriously and hold each other accountable to them. And anyone could go to our website any day of the week, where we consistently expose the fascist attacks on LGBT people. They also,
and yet the same movement that you're constantly sucking up to has made a special pamphlet all about how evil you are. You know, like, again, stop simping.
tried to sell you a crude distortion, saying Bob Avakian is an authoritarian and that Revcoms discourage any questioning of his authority.
Well, I mean, what if he is an authoritarian, right? I mean, China under Mao was pretty authoritarian. You know, Soviet Union under Lenin, Stalin was pretty authoritarian. And maybe this anti-authoritarianism thing, this liberal brainworm about, oh my God, we can't have a leader and no kings and all of that. Maybe that's part of the liberal order and the problem with it. Have you ever thought about that? But no, you're not authoritarian. So you're going to try to tell a bunch of liberals, hey, I love Mao, I love Stalin, but I'm totally not authoritarian. Like, just don't believe what you read. I mean, come on. Take that on. Challenge it. Ugh.
Oh, but if they say it, it must be true, right? Wrong. How much do you even want to bet that the spreaders of this have not even gone seriously into Bob Avakian's work on this question?
Well, honestly, they're being more honest about your history than you are, okay? And I hate to defend these smear artists because they've targeted me in the exact same way. But I'm telling you that you know, like, you need to be, you can't just pander, right? You need to just be honest about who you are and fight back. And you need to stop sucking up to these people, right? They don't want you.
Have they read the Constitution for the new Socialist Republic in North America? Probably not. If they did, they'd see it's the furthest thing from the scary authoritarian nightmare that they warn you about. And this new Constitution puts a premium on political and cultural ferment and the protection and provision for dissent. And as far as questioning him, Bob Avakian is the first person to say you should always ask why, and promotes the need to be a critical thinker and for there to be many people taking responsibility for leading the process of making revolution forward.
Hey, RCP, just a suggestion. You don't care what I think, but if you don't want people to think you're a cult, maybe don't have your leaders' writings organized into verses like the Bible. Just a mild suggestion there. I mean, we all know like John 3:16 and Galatians 12 and all of that. Don't have Bob Avakian 4:14. All right, that's just a little bit of advice, right? If you're really concerned, you're really desperate to make sure people don't think you're a cult, I would suggest not putting your leaders' writings up like Bible verses. Okay, that's just my thinking. Continue.
Of making revolution forward. But if they were really concerned about authoritarianism, they would stop sabotaging the movement trying to defeat this fascism. But these are just some of the particular lies in this flyer. But there's a bigger problem with the way they present all of this, and they try to get skeptical readers to go along with it. They say, why trust this? Don't believe us. Believe this list of other sources. But here's the problem. These other sources are doing the same thing that they're doing, spreading anti-communist lies, distortions, and slander.
And most of the sources are also pushing Trump derangement syndrome and pushing the same stuff that you guys push about Trump and about American politics, right? So, like, these are other people that have your exact same message that are also smearing you because you work for French intelligence and they don't need you and they kind of find you threatening.
Much of which has already been well refuted, by the way. It's like a hall of mirrors at a carnival. Lies are bouncing back and forth over and over and over. Look, something is not true because a lot of people say, or because it comes from a source that you like. The test of truth needs to be reality itself. And one of the spookiest lies that these opportunists perpetuate is the Revcoms are a cult. The Revcoms are a cult. And what's their evidence? Well, everyone says. Here, you can hear an echo of Trump in the insistence that a lot of people believe, a lot of people say that we Revcoms are a cult. Come on.
Actually, the Cult Awareness Network guy, Steve Hassan, literally wrote a book called The Cult of Trump. So you're a little confused there, my dear.
Does it actually need explaining that a lot of people believe, a lot of people say is not a good and valid standard for determining what is actually true? Okay.
Yeah, you're right. You're 100% right. And I've been subjected to the same thing. People say, well, everyone knows he's bad. Really? How do they know I'm bad? Well, and I mean, they do the exact same thing to me. And it's like I'm torn between sympathizing with them because I have been targeted in the exact same way, smeared and harassed. And our organization, CPI, has been targeted in the exact same way. So I'm with you, except I'm telling you, stop simping. Stop sucking up to these people. Join the side that is fighting against these evil motherfuckers who smear organizations like this.
But why do so many people fall for this?
Because it's coming from the side you're pandering to. That's why.
Because there's a fucked up culture, even among the left.
Specifically among the left, my dear. We got to get out of the movement and get to the masses because the movement is toxic. Oh.
An eager indulgence in snark, gossip, slander, accusation, and cancellation, whether the accusation is fabricated or true, something that is effectively irrelevant to those caught up in this. A culture that is defined by a preference for the subjective and superficial, as opposed to substance and a serious, scientifically grounded engagement with important objective reality in order to come to a reasoned, evidence-based understanding of what is actually true and what must be done to bring about positive change.
In short, way too many people are looking for gossip, not evidence. So I want to introduce a new phrase. Don't go for the tea, go for reality.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I don't want to do that bread tube thing where you just show people and laugh. I really don't want to do that. I just, oh boy, don't go for the tea. Go for reality.
So what's really going on with these haters? The fact is that they are actually big mad that the Revcoms are serious about making a real revolution. There's actually a part in here where they seem to forget why they wrote this flyer in the first place. They say, instead of working alongside other activists or building broad coalitions, wait, didn't you publish this little hit piece because we are in coalition with many others from different perspectives in Refuse Fascism? So which is it? Do we work with other people or not? I digress. But they continue with actually one of the few points of content in this flyer. They cried that, oh, the Revcoms believe they alone have the correct path to revolution and everyone must follow their leader, Avakian. So let's have a debate then about...
Exactly. That's actually a really good point, right? You know, of course they think that. And if you don't think that, have a debate about it. Like, what's wrong with that, right? And that, again, it's the Khruschevism. Yeah, they think they're right. Should they think they're wrong? You know, and this is how this Khruschevism stuff works, right? You know, the attack against me. He speaks persuasively. Oh, shit, I'm going to try to speak non-persuasively to make sure. You know, it's this weird thing they do of like, well, they think that they are right. Good. Wouldn't it be fucked up if they were going around doing what they did and advocating their views and they didn't think they were right? Like, you know, this is how this like liberal mindfuck works.
Versus reform. That's something everyone can learn from. And yeah, we do have a real strategy for revolution. Do you have a critique of it?
Yeah, it's tail the liberals and do whatever the liberals are doing and do it louder. And whatever Rachel Maddow says, say it more louder and more hysterically. That's your strategy for revolution. I'm not impressed. Not impressed.
We'd love to hear it, but no, they're just pissed that...
Well, talk to me anytime. Any RCP person is welcome to come on this YouTube channel anytime. Just throwing that out there. Anytime. Any RCP person or RCP sympathizing person is 100% welcome to come on here and we can argue about Bob Avakian and we can talk about Trump derangement syndrome or anytime. If you want to have a debate, I'm all for it. And I will not accuse you of being a cult.
We're serious about this. So you should ask these opportunists what's their strategy to overthrow this system and bring a better world into being, if that's even something that they are about. Maybe the real problem is they don't even care. Think about it. If you're a radical critic within this system of oppression and exploitation, you can carve out a certain niche for yourself. Then here are the Revcoms, serious about overthrowing that system. And it challenges your position, and it also exposes their raggedy asses for not all that radical. So yeah, they are scared of having this debate. Haters like this are not trying to have this conversation, so they divert, wreck, sabotage the unity that's needed, and at this moment with so much on the line, no one should have any tolerance for it, and we all need to be vigilant to call it out when we see it. If you want to be part of a historic and urgently needed fight to actually defeat fascism, look into Refuse Fascism. Join.
Wah, wah, wah. All right. Well, anyhow, I feel like I should put on the video of when we got targeted by these people and how we handled it. And we have a very different approach to handling these people. We just make fun of them. We just make fun of them when we keep doing what we're doing. And these people, they protested our event. The very same people, the cult awareness, people, the woke, liberal, anti-cults, whatever they're called, they went after our event. And this was how we handled it. And, my hat goes off to Gabby and Penny and Peter and everyone who was there with us. And this is how we handled the Cult Awareness Network and these same people with the same kind of flyers and everything.
We went out to Minneapolis to do just kind of a routine small workshop that we do in a number of cities. We've done them before, where we get together, have some classes, get to know different members, different friends. Anyhow, we get out there and we see all these crazy signs posted up all over the neighborhood.
Let's not alert the membership as of yet, right? Because they want a reaction. If they see they're getting a reaction, that'll embolden them, right? We'll just be extra careful with security at the door. But honestly, I don't think we should not do the event. No, I think we should do it. I guess we'll just proceed with our meeting as usual. Okay, so the first thing is that the break time is the most important, right? The break time when we're actually talking to people.
is the most important time, right? Actually, when I'm speaking and all that, it's not that important. What's important is when we're talking with the people. On Saturday morning, our main concern was the lack of heat. The Airbnb had not turned the heat on, and it was record low temperatures. It was a very, very cold night, so we're inside the house, and we're figuring we can't really start the workshop until the heat comes on. So then we see them outside.
Burger King! Burger King! Burger King! Burger King! Burger King!
It is 8:30 in the morning.
And it's like 20 below zero.
We're gonna wake up the whole neighborhood.
Yeah.
Everyone's in the neighborhood's gonna hate them.
The house across the street looks abandoned or dilapidated. I don't think they're worried about fascism. They're worried about putting food on the table.
We're worried about getting the heat turned on.
Yes,
It's a little cold here. The heat hasn't been turned on in our Airbnb.
And these guys start preemptively gloating that nobody is showing up.
No, we expected you like turning the attendees away. This is amazing. It seems like no one is coming. Wow.
Not knowing that we literally don't have heat and we're not gonna start the thing without heat. It was actually like a solid hour after they left before we got the heat, and then we had people start coming. Well, actually, I take that back. There was one gentleman they did get to try to intimidate out of attending, a disabled gentleman, which, you know, that's cool.
They shouted at him, "Don't go in there, they'll rape you."
He attended though. He was not scared of them.
Gabby.
I've seen you. I've seen you.
Can we see what they gave you?
Hello.
Can we see what they gave you?
Morning, this is a cult. Press TV. Oh, wow. It's Dugan.
Press TV.
Oh, man. Linda LaRouche. And your name's on here, too.
Really?
Yeah.
What? Famous.
Right? You're a failed political candidate and dedicated follower of Caleb Maupin's. You know, we're inside and, like, laughing about it. The whole thing just looked completely insane. At 8:30 in the morning, in record cold temperatures, you have 15 kids out there wearing COVID masks with signs about spanking and fascism and cults. I mean, the whole thing just had to look completely insane.
What are they saying?
Maupin runs the CPI. He's a weird little guy. One of the chants that they had, which I absolutely loved, was Caleb owns CPI. He's a weird little guy.
Caleb runs the CPI. He's a weird little guy.
They're calling you weird, dancing around with signs that no one understands.
Now, I thought that was very funny.
And by the way, don't you find some of their stuff to just be plain weird?
At one point, Peter Coffin walked out among the protesters. I immediately thought of the scene in The Wizard of Oz where Dorothy wakes up and she's walking among the munchkins.
Come out, wherever you are.
Because they were all like really short in comparison to him. And it made me think that the guy on the bullhorn or one of the people that had thought of that chant, they must have been called a weird little guy at some point in their life.
You're so out of touch. You think CPUSA would be a viable force to put together a picket like this? It's amazing.
They were on the bullhorn talking about communist inside baseball.
Colt, I mean, you started in the RCP, so it's used to Colt.
Gospels were a joke even to Trots.
No, we're trying to show you we care enough to tell you guys what's going on here. We want you guys to get out of the cult. We're trying to show you we care enough. No, we're trying to show you we care enough to tell you guys what's going on here. We want you guys to get out of the cult.
We are gonna have some fun with them, but we don't want to be too mean to them because there's a lot of people in this organization around the country, and I'm not gonna violate anyone's private business, but more than a handful of people that have joined CPI that have told me why they joined CPI. And they said, Caleb, you know, I was in these communist circles, I was in my 20s, and I was using drugs. I rock bottomed. You know, I screwed up, I did something wrong, and, you know, I had to go into recovery. And I realized that if I was gonna get over my addiction, I couldn't keep thinking in the pessimistic, dark, hopeless way that seems to accompany communist politics in America. I had to be optimistic. And I suddenly started hearing you, and you were the only communist I could stand to listen to anymore. You were the only one that was putting out a hopeful, optimistic message that wasn't tearing people down, that wasn't preaching resentment. I believe there were people out there that are in that same category. You know what I honestly believe deep in my soul? I believe that there were people out there today that will eventually join CPI. Let me just put it this way. You can never say that the Center for Political Innovation or myself or Peter, you can never say that we're irrelevant. The fact that we had a small meetup was so important to some people. They woke up on Saturday morning, went out in freezing cold temperatures, and made a huge ruckus to tell everyone just how upset they were about the fact that we exist and we continue to do our work. You know, we were ready to defend ourselves, but they weren't a threat to us at all. They were kind of embarrassing, and they were kind of clowns. And I'm embarrassed for whatever organization let this happen, was involved in making it happen. And I'm also embarrassed for the people that did this protest, because you were out there making fools out of yourselves while we were inside talking about the serious issues and how to change the future of our country, how to fight against imperialism, globalism, how to fight for working families. So yeah, certainly an interesting trip to Minneapolis. I'm glad we were there, and yeah, we're gonna do a lot more workshops, let me put it that way.